stunning move, and that's continuing. 528 points higher now on the Sensex and 150 points on the Nifty. The Nifty is now above 11,300. And for the Bank Nifty, now this is a comfortable new all-time high. In fact, it's now at 28,474. It's added another 100 points after taking out that all-time high. That's been the ferocity of the rally. Sudarshan and Mitesh back with us for BTST calls. Sudarshan, you go first. This is a market in which you just trail stop loss, right? And the market takes care of you, or is there a different strategy? And what are your stock calls now, if any?
Well, yes, the stock calls are there. See, we should carry our positions in the market tomorrow. And tomorrow, perhaps we should then judge and plan an exit. Because there could be a gap up for all we know. That's a sign. But stocks, I would be very careful of buying into stocks that have already run up. So I'm not doing that. Exide Industries is a buying opportunity. That's for tomorrow morning. We buy today. 224 as a stop and 233 as a minor target. And UBL, which has not participated in this noise, or rather in this rally, but still is a strong stock. So that should be considered for buying. 1377 as a stop and 1415 as a target. While it's easier to carry the index, now traders should plan to take profits in stocks.
Okay. Well, before I go to Mitesh, Sudarshan, you know, earlier in the morning when Bata hit an all-time high, I wanted to ask you your view, but you weren't available at that time. I mean, you've been fiercely loyal towards the Bata stock. At this 1370 price, is it still worth a buy?
Actually, it's worth buying, but only for an investor. For a trader, my sense is that you should start collecting money off the table.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, shouldn't get emotional about your stocks, right? Mitesh also is with us. Mitesh, what's the last hour call?
So I have two buy calls as well. Reliance, I think, again, something which is getting past, closing above the all-time high. PTST with a stop at 1370 for targets of 1345. And Nestle is something which is showing a good intraday pattern. So buy with a stop at 10,300. For tomorrow, look for targets close to about 10,700.
Okay, well, Anu, just look at the market. I mean, it's now a 550 point, almost 520 point rally on the Sensex. And the Nifty, I mean, it's just no holds barred now, this rally.
You know, and this is where the coattail sort of style works. You know that this is the FI-driven market. You know now that, you know, you're going to see this kind of money. You have to buy the stocks where you have the FI participation. That's why we discussed HDFC in the morning. That's why HDFC Bank. That's why the move in Reliance. Yeah. And who's buying these stocks, you know, Sonia? At the end of the day,
Axis Bank.
Axis Bank. I mean, look at the move in HDFC now from the low point today, or HDFC Bank the last few minutes, Kotak Mahindra Bank. This is the power of money. This is, and when the ETF money comes in, it doesn't look at the price. It just wants to, it buys. Because it's chasing that the move. If the move happens, otherwise it will make sense. You are seeing that, and that's why, of course, you can't have this kind of move. Broad point is that that's the kind of stock that you should look at, because the risk reward is in your favor when you're buying some of these stocks now.
Okay, well, but even for a long-term retail investor, I mean, is it still, I get the trading perspective, but for a long-term retail investor who has perhaps waited this far, is it still a good time to jump in?
I think the SIP should have never been stopped. That's rule number one. Now, you know, like Nilisha says, the good time was 30 years back. The next good time is tomorrow.
Today.
Or today. But look, it's tough to, you know, now justify that, you know, you buy fresh here. Because if you buy fresh here, you need to be prepared for a 100, 150 point kind of drawdown. But this market now looks like, you know, in some kind of expansion phase. And my sense is Nifty's all-time high is now a matter of when and not if. So at least that much target you should have in your mind. Just like we saw Bank Nifty all-time high, I think Nifty all-time high should happen. And after that, hopefully, even on the junior and the mid-cap index, I think at some point, perhaps you will see all-time highs.
Okay, in fact, let's speak to one voice or somebody who actually puts his money where his mouth is. Jonathan Sheasel, the Senior Vice President of IIFL AMC, joins us now on the show. And Jonathan, as you know, has been speaking to us for the last many years in his previous role as well. Jonathan, hi, good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining in. You have this fund that you manage called the IIFL India Equity Opportunities Fund. At this point in time, are you increasing your allocation towards the Indian markets? And if yes, what are the pockets that look attractive to you?
Yeah, it's fascinating how quickly sentiment changes. A bit of money flow and the market clearly is roaring up. I mean, I think it's fair to say we've been getting slightly more optimistic, shall we say, positioning-wise over the last few weeks. We've been reducing a little bit to some of our IT exposure. I still think pharma looks okay, but certainly IT is probably the one sector where people have been, if you like, hiding in for the last 6 to 12 months. So I think possibly that's a sector which is seeing a bit of pressure. And then obviously the financials continues to be the key sector from an Indian perspective. And obviously there's so many different areas of that sector to play. And also I think, people are clearly been wanting to buy industrials, to sort of, I think foreigners certainly been looking for a long time for this so-called capex recovery, which has been continually delayed. So I think the high beta sectors are the ones which are clearly going at the moment.
Okay, hi, Jonathan. Hi, good afternoon. So, we've seen a lot of buying in cement over the last 1 month or so. Do you have any stocks or any positions in this sector?
Sorry, there was a bit of a cutout there. I must have lost the question.
The cement sector.
Oh, the cement sector. No, we used to obviously play the cement sector. I guess about a year ago was the last time we had exposure into that sector. I think the reason we left the sector back in that time was overcapacity issues, pricing issues. Clearly, the cement sector is a beneficiary of the economy housing type of push. But for us, I think we've tried to not be too exposed to overly cyclical sectors up to this stage. And I still see issues with overcapacity in the cement sector in particular. That certainly means we're still a bit cautious, or I'm still a bit cautious on that area.
Okay, just pull out Apollo Hospitals intraday, by the way. Just in a very strong market, this is a stock which has fallen off the cliff all of a sudden. That's Apollo Hospitals for you. Just pull out that, and the large volumes on that is quite interesting. I don't know if there's any news flow or anything, but just a bit of a slide. Oh, okay. So Jonathan, since you're saying financials is the best way to play this market, what part of financials? Because there's there's IndusInd Bank which is bouncing back today. There's been Axis Bank which has been hitting new all-time highs. ICICI Bank has found its mojo back. Of course, the evergreen HDFC twins.
Absolutely. So I think it's been interesting. I guess over the last 3 or 4 months, or even 6 months, HDFC Bank has sort of fallen out of favour. It's not that the stock has gone down. It's just I think the buying interest has clearly been all around the corporate sector, the corporate banks. But it's interesting, you were raising the point earlier that even HDFC Bank is now beginning to move. I guess that's a reflection of the large weighting in a lot of the indices that bank carries. So look, we still have good positions to both the private sector names, plus also a couple of the corporate sector banks as well. I guess my concern over ICICI Bank for some time that's kept me a bit cautious on the name is it was a bit overowned, and it was the sort of one stock in the corporate pack which everybody said you've got to buy. We were a little bit more cautious with the ongoing issues, the historical issues with the prior management team or the prior managing director. Which I don't, still is sort of dragging on. And I know ICICI Bank is now clear of that, but that kept me personally a little bit cautious with that name. But I do understand why people are looking at it. We still hold Axis Bank, and we've also got State Bank as well as a play on the corporate space. And then finally we do have HDFC as well, which is our only exposure in the NBFC sector.
Okay, so you hold Axis Bank and SBI, and you like HDFC as well. What about some of these consumption stocks, not just the frontliners like Titan, but some of these broader market stocks, names like Bata, you have Havels, all hitting new highs, Imami, Dabur have looked pretty good as well. What's your pick of the pack there?
It's an interesting sector, isn't it? I mean, you've got tremendous valuations in some of those names, and I know you talked about Imami, which you could argue is the value play there, but otherwise, otherwise, yeah, it's difficult with the actual valuations that we're seeing all over the place in that sector. So I'm still a little bit cautious. I'm not sure that's the right part of the market to be chasing just now. I think other areas of the market where we've seen more significant drawdowns are probably more interesting at the moment.
Sure.
So the mid-cap space generally looks quite interesting. Sure. But yeah, we've been looking at Voltus for some time, but that seems to have gone off on a large move. And as you say, some of the corporate names have been incredibly strong. The Titans and everything else, really, really strong stock price moves.
Okay, Jonathan, when I had started my career, at that point, the number one stock in the FIS table used to be Bharti Airtel. I'm talking about the early 2000s, 2003, 4. It was, it was a dream stock then. And then, of course, we've gone through a decade of bear market. Some signs of life coming back into this stock. I mean, have you looked at it recently? It's a very under-owned stock. Do you think it warrants a relook?
Yeah, it's a fascinating sector. So I'm personally not, obviously we're down to 3 main operators now, plus obviously the state-owned entity. So you've seen consolidation in the sector, and valuations have obviously collapsed, but then so have earnings. It is interesting. I guess the point is, are you going to get rationality back in that sector? And that's the sort of thing that's kept us away, because I'm just not so sure that obviously the Reliance Jio, which has driven down particularly data prices so much, I'm not sure that they're suddenly going to start upping prices or being less competitive. I mean, clearly there's a bigger game that Reliance is chasing here, not just telecom. So from that perspective, I'm not sure, I'm still not convinced that we're going to get rationality back. I understand. So from the domestic side, it's probably too early yet. I understand Bharti, is also more than just the domestic play. They're obviously, dealing with some of their African business and separately listing that and trying to sort out their balance sheet. But clearly there's also issues with, Vodafone Idea. We did play actually the sector more recently by Bharti Infratel, which I think was quite interesting. But we have exited that position because it did quite well. But it is an interesting sector. I understand why people are looking at it, but I'm just not so sure we're going to get rationality back just yet.
Fair enough. Jonathan, it's good talking to you. Thanks a lot for joining us. And of course, we hope to talk to you soon again. Before we take a break, just the first sign of profit taking after this stunning rally, especially in the mid-cap index. Just look at the mid-cap index. Now, not to preempt this, but could we have the mid-cap index going into the red actually by the time we close today? That will be quite interesting. There's serious profit taking which has happened. I mean, we looked at Apollo Hospitals as an example. And if you're looking at the large cap names, look at IndusInd Bank. I know it spoke about it through the day and the kind of delivery buying that it might see. But just the last 10 or 15 minutes of trade, there's been some money which has been taken off and the mid-cap index as well. So But that's not
that would necessarily not be a bad thing, right? Because it's been such a big move, and over the last 2 weeks, that maybe people want to just take their profits before more political volatility comes through.
Absolutely, I think no harm in that. And even if you go through 2 or 3 days of correction, consolidation, allow the market to catch up, that won't necessarily be a bad thing. I just was pointing out that you've seen even the Nifty Junior go down a bit. The market bet today is not as healthy. I started up, of course, 6:1, 7:1. But the mid cap, this what might be happening is that now the huge money is chasing the large cap, the largest of the large caps, and that's why the Sensex and Nifty still holding out. Sensex still holding out 450-point gain, Nifty still holding out 125-point gain. But after this rally, perhaps some sort of profit taking from the domestic side could be the order of the day, and that's why the mid cap index gains, they have been pared down to just about 1/3 of 1%.
Oh, absolutely. That caution is well taken on board about the correction, or not correction, I mean just coming off of the mid cap index.